I got a question for you, Jim. Josh was talking about frisk, the Terry stop a little bit ago. And what he said was that if a cop has reasonable suspicion to believe that somebody's engaging in a crime, like they're hanging around by it in the front of a jewelry store, was the example, I'm not sure. Are you guys, do you understand that to mean that your officers have authority to, certainly to go up and talk to them, I suspect, but to put your hands on them and frisk them, actually?
You know, I think that the stop and frisk is one of the things that's misunderstood a lot.
Can you explain that to these guys? I think that's something they might want to know about.
I think the stop and frisk is misunderstood, and maybe one of these guys that's more learned will tell me that I've misunderstood it. But we've got reason to stop somebody in the incident he's talking about. But we also have to have reason to believe that they're armed before we can start putting hands on them.
Armed and presently dangerous.
Right. Not just that they're standing around and they may have a pot pipe in their pocket. That doesn't count. We've got to have some belief that they're armed, and our officers recognize that and won't pat you down unless there's an arrest.
Well, I just want to make sure that you guys have got to be thoroughly confused. You got to be, because this stuff is what we learned in law school over months, okay? But you understand there's one standard, it's called reasonable suspicion, whether a cop can even come up to you and say, hey, hang on a second, what's your name? They can't even do that. There's a standard before they can do that. They just can't come up and bug you for no reason. Reasonable suspicion. Now, once they come and say, hey, hang on a second, they can't touch you until they got to believe that you're armed. They have reason to believe that you're armed and presently dangerous. And so, Jim's right. It's confused. I think that authorities don't understand that. I don't want to speak for anybody, but that's the way I see it.
So let me just ask a question here. How many people right now are carrying knives?
You have a right to remain silent.
Don't answer my questions. You just incriminate yourself.
How about a weapon? I mean, a knife. How about like a pen? Right? That's a weapon, right?
Right. How many are wearing big baggy coats? Or sort of, I mean, you can manufacture, I mean, an officer is reasonably in fear of their life. I think most officers in Montana would appreciate that a lot of people are armed all the time.
Yeah, but see, what Andrew's arguing right now is, see, you understand that we can agree to disagree. Josh has some ideas of what PC means. I have others. And then we let the judge decide. He's not the judge, nor am I. But we argue it. They argue, well, this cop is they're out there, their lives are on the line. It's true. They're not getting paid enough to do that. But there's a standard for touching somebody. And they can't just say, well, people out there are armed. It's a fact, Judge. And whenever I stop anybody, I'm nervous. That may be true. But you got to be able to articulate a reason to believe that they're armed and dangerous. Not, well, most people are, and you look kind of like, I don't know, I had a gut feeling, It just doesn't, it's not general. You got to be specific. I think I'm right, aren't I, Andrew?
You are right, Craig. I'm not suggesting that. What I'm saying is you have to appreciate that I don't believe it is a very difficult standard for an officer to be able to articulate a reasonable belief that you are armed and dangerous. What does that mean? That means that the officer can then do a pat-down of the exterior of your clothes, right? Except if they feel, and Montana has adopted this, not only the feds, but the Montana Supreme Court has adopted this, if they feel something in your pocket that they know is contraband, or they believe is a weapon, they can take it out.
But the question is, how, when they're feeling it, right, Andrew? How much can they feel it before they can detect that?
Well, they can't play with it, but
right.
The point is...
Right. It has to be immediately identifiable without,
right.
manipulating it.
Right. And when they pull out the pot pipe, you're going to jail. Right? And then the officer is going to write a report
Missoula.
that says...
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. All right.
I'm gonna cut you off, Professor, if that's okay.
That's all good.
I noticed there's some hands. If you do have questions, if you could line up, and then we'll just cycle through. That'd be better than yelling. Use the microphone. So, to our first question.
Good evening. I'm wondering if there are any limitations to your right to express or your right to silence. If like there are any limitations when you just cannot express your right to not say anything.
Yeah, if you're stopped, if an officer has reasonable suspicion, like we were talking about earlier, to suspect that you are committing a crime or engaged in a crime or even in Montana, a witness to a crime, you are required to provide your name if asked. I don't believe you're required to provide any identification, but you're required to provide your name. If you are the driver of an automobile that is stopped, you're required to provide your driver's license and registration. That, I think, is about the extent of what you have to provide.
I think if I could just answer what she might have meant.
Thanks.
I don't believe there's ever a time, well, I know there's never a time where you have to incriminate yourself.
Oh, yeah, you don't have to say anything if you don't want to. I mean, you might want to say something like, can I go now?
Sure.
I just want to make one point about that is you can assert your rights, and I advise you to assert your rights in all kinds of contexts. Your right to remain silent. Recognize, for instance, if you're pulled over for a DUI or a suspected DUI, that the entire encounter with the police is designed to produce incriminating evidence against you. Everything that they do is designed to prosecute you for that offense. So don't give them any evidence, but recognize that if you assert your rights, there's a very good chance that you will go to jail. All right? You may win when we fight this out in front of a judge. You may prevail, or the prosecution may not decide to take the case, but there's a very good chance that you will spend the weekend in jail, or there will be more interaction with the police officer upon the assertion of rights. Not always, but just have that in mind. I'm not saying that that should prevent you from asserting your rights at all. What I'm saying is you have to understand that that may be antagonistic in certain situations.
Well, and I just wanted to say that out on the front desk, there's these little pamphlets, but we also have a card from the ACLU that says, what do you do when you're stopped by the police, and what you can say and whatnot. So if you want to look at that, I think it says the same thing these guys are saying, so that's good.